Who would you put in the same category of evil as Hitler? Maybe not as evil, but definitely worth a mention is Joseph Fritzl. For those who don't know, raped his daughter for the first time when she was 11 years old. Held her locked away in his basement for 24 years till she was 42, molested and raped her throughout the whole time, which resulted in 7 children. 1 child died after birth, the other 6 were also kept in the basement. I assume they got molested as well, even though it's never mentioned. Now if somebody is a monster, this guy is for sure. Peter Scully. An Australian pedophile that went to the Philippines to prey on impoverished children. He built an international child sexual abuse ring that offered pay-per-view streams of children being raped and tortured. He promoted hurtcore, a type of child pornography that focuses on torturing children. A video from him went around the dark web called Daisy's Destruction, in which he raped and tortured an 18-month-old toddler. He made kids dig their own graves before strangling them with a rope. I am not trying to downplay Hitler's evil, but Hitler had an end goal: to rid of the world of people who he thinks are bad. Peter Scully's end goal is to get rich by killing and raping babies. If you had a gun pointed to your head and had to tell what is the most evil, depraved, vile thing you can imagine, Peter Scully did it. AskReddit. Genocidal, torturer, child rapist, mass murderer. A guy so fucking evil even the other SS members thought he was too much. Derlwanger was repeatedly convicted for illegal arms possession and embezzlement. In 1934, he was convicted and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment for the rape of a 14-year-old girl from the League of German Girls, BDM, as well as the illegal use of a government vehicle and damaging said vehicle while under the influence of alcohol. Derlwanger also lost his job, his doctor title and all military honors, and was expelled from the party. Soon after his release from the prison in Ludwigsburg, he was arrested again on similar charges for criminal recidivism. He was sent to the Welsheim concentration camp, either as what Stein feels was standard practice for deviant sexual offenders in Germany at the time, or for creating a disturbance demanding the reversal of his criminal charges appearing before the Reich Chancellery. Derlwanger was released and reinstated in the General Reserve of the SS following personal intervention of his wartime companion and local Stab cadre comrade Gottlob Berger, who was also a longtime personal friend of the SS chief Heinrich Himmler and had become the head of the SS head office, SS Hauptamt, SS Ha. Holy fuck. And I continued reading. It gets worse. Torture, rape, pedophilia, burning hospitals, necrophilia, causing, ordering, facilitating or assisting with well over 100,000 fucking murders, including 40,000 in 2 days in Warsaw, truly the epitome of evil. Yet I have never heard of him before. I know it is important we learn our history to avoid repeating it, but reading that page was traumatic. After the war he was caught trying to escape disguised as a civilian and put in prison. His cellmate stated that he was recognized by 2 Polish prison guards who beat him to within an inch of his life and then left him to bleed out on the cell floor. The French authorities running the prison recorded his cause of death as natural causes on the death certificate. Which is entirely accurate for someone like Derlwanger. Pol Pot. 100% him. My mother, who was 9 at the start, and her entire family were forced out of their home at gunpoint, marched to the countryside where they were separated into different camps and forced to farm without having any background knowledge on farming methods. She was forced to change her name since her birth name was considered too intellectual, fancy. She worked from sunrise to sundown, and if she didn't meet her quota she wasn't allowed to eat. They were only fed rice porridge as well. So many people tried to survive by eating bark, insects or whatever they could sneak, and if they were caught they were beaten or killed. Many women and young girls were beaten and raped regularly. My mother has vivid memories of seeing corpses that were mutilated and violated. She also witnessed babies being killed by having their heads smashed against trees. One of her brothers was axed to death for asking for food. There are so many other dark and brutal stories that she has about that time. It hurts to think about all that she went through and makes me appreciate my life so much more. Surgeon General Shiroishi, director of Unit 731, the unit of the Japanese Imperial Army that orchestrated Japan's incomprehensibly cruel human experimentation and biological weapons testing during World War II. They vivisected babies, pregnant women, and just civilians in general, alive with no anesthesia and out of sheer sadistic curiosity. They locked people in massive freezers to see how long frostbite took to kill. Placed live kidnapped civilians on round grenades to see how the damage changed with distance. Dropped bubonic plague bombs on villages. Despite some scientific findings, it's the shit they did for no reason other than sadistic pleasure or curiosity that makes them almost worse than the Nazis. From Wikipedia, some of the tests have been described as psychopathically sadistic, with no conceivable military application. For example, one experiment documented the time it took for 3-day-old babies to freeze to death. 731 is one of the darkest things I've ever read about. The only sense of empathy I read about is when a girl wanted to know what she looked like, and a guard broke protocol to put a mirror in front of her while she was in her cell. I just can't believe this happened. It's gut-wrenching. There is at least one recorded instance of friendly social interaction between prisoners and Unit 731 staff. Technician Nakata Ishibashi interacted with 2 female prisoners. One prisoner was a 21-year-old Chinese woman, the other a Soviet girl who was 19 years of age. Ishibashi asked where she came from and learned that she was from Ukraine. The 2 prisoners told Ishibashi that they had not seen their faces in a mirror since being captured and begged him to get one. Ishibashi sneaked a mirror to them through a hole in the cell door. From Wikipedia. Literally the only paragraph in the article that isn't entirely horrible. Jimmy Savile, just the fact he raped and molested so many children and he even took pride in his evil is just fucked up. He was an absolute piece of shit to everyone, but him giving money to charity and doing charity work shielded him. Despite this work let him access his targets more easily as he could go into children's wards whenever he pleased. People knew, but he was doing so much charity work for children in need and children's hospitals, it didn't seem to matter. They even silenced Johnny Rotten on it and Louis Theroux was exposing him too. People knew, but it seemed that only a small minority tried to tell the truth like those absolute legends. Ian Watkins as well. That man is the devil incarnate for me or pretty close to that. He's just a vile disgusting man who did this for lols, and should never ever see the light of day. Albert Fish was a complete fucking atrocity of a human. The shit he did for fun and his evilness is just fucking horrific. These men were and are all monsters and they should only be remembered as the worst humanity has to offer. They deserve no fucking praise, as any achievement like music or charity work, has gone down the fucking drain. Their evilness has overshadowed what they did, and while they may have made thousands happy, they also made several people severely injured, damaged, scared, traumatized and hurt. I hope these men are rotting in hell and Watkins will rot in hell too for the evil that they did. Thomas Midgley Jr. The man who invented leaded petrol and knew the dangers of it, which society is still suffering from the effects today. He also invented CFCs in home appliances which as people know did an incredible amount of damage to our environment. He is single-handedly responsible for more damage to this planet and its species than any organism in this planet's history. He choked slowly to death on his own polio contraption. The CEO of Nestlé recently said that water isn't a human right. I would say that's a pretty evil mindset. Here is the full quote for those curious, courtesy of Snopes. Quote-unquote. Water is, of course, the most important raw material we have today in the world. It's a question of whether we should privatize the normal water supply for the population. And there are 2 different opinions on the matter. The one opinion, which I think is extreme, is represented by the NGOs, who bang on about declaring water a public right. That means that as a human being you should have a right to water. That's an extreme solution. The other view says that water is a foodstuff like any other, and like any other foodstuff it should have a market value. Personally, I believe it's better to give a foodstuff a value so that we're all aware it has its price, and then that one should take specific measures for the part of the population that has no access to this water, and there are many different possibilities there. Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice Maxwell. Yeah, but shit is actually worse. Maxwell was convicted of trafficking minors. But not a single one of the men who raped those girls got indicted. Much less convicted. Hell, they aren't even named. The FBI has the tapes. They know who the rapists are. And the FBI protects those rapists because they are powerful, rich men. McGuire said that the scope of the search warrant didn't permit the agents to seize the hard drives and CDs, so she left them atop the safe. When she got a broader warrant and returned to retrieve them, They were gone. This is the excuse they are giving. This is what really gets me. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? There is a massive conspiracy here, that everyone is aware of, and we've done dick all with it. Mao Zedong. 40 to 80 million Chinese civilians died as a result of his rule. Executed children for stealing potatoes during a famine. Set up polling stations to find out who was disobedient. Citizens could come and write down their thoughts on how their country should be run. These letters exposed people who even slightly disagreed with him. The lucky ones were jailed, while most disappeared without a trace. Government officials were forced to lie about how much crop was produced or they would be killed. Orchestrated the Great Leap Forward and Cultural Revolution. Books were burned. Various historical and cultural sites and artifacts were destroyed, including the tombs of the Ming Dynasty. Millions were persecuted and or killed, and people converted to atheism, either willingly or by force. To rub salt on the wound, many people today still see him in a positive light, even my own parents who are Chinese Americans.